We've got some breaking news this morning. Last night, Donald Trump and his lawyers are appealing, so to speak, are requesting directly of Merrick Garland and Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida to block the imminent, you heard me, the imminent release of Jack Smith, the special counsel's report on the outstanding cases, the outstanding criminal actions that he was as special counsel investigating, that he had indicted, and that he had planned to try. Remember, Jack Smith, the special counsel who was appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland 18 months too late, he had proceeded very swiftly and efficiently and had charged Donald Trump, right, in federal cases in DC and in Florida. And you may remember that Jack Smith had announced that now that Donald Trump had won, he was planning to step down. And we understood that he was going to release, at least to Merrick Garland, his report. And then we hoped that Merrick Garland would at least meet the standards of Bill Barr and share that report with the public. Well, last night we found out as follows. And since this is breaking news, I am going to share my screen with you right now. Okay, here we go. And there it is. I think you can see this. And I'm even going to blow this up a little bit and play for you this breaking news, which I think you'll be able to hear. Let's go. Nope, hold on.
Of a report from special counsel Jack Smith. Lawyers for Mr. Trump say they received a draft copy of the special counsel's final report. It addresses the investigations into election interference and the classified.
Can't hear it. 1 second. Let me see if I can get this to go. 1 second. Let's try this one more time. Otherwise, I will just tell you what it says. I got this. Share screen. It's just I'm not sure if they're letting me play it at the same time. Okay. And I got it. Okay, let's see if it goes.
Good morning. The president-elect is not the only one trying to stop this report from becoming public.
Right, Francis. Good morning to you. Lawyers for some of Mr. Trump's co-defendants in the classified documents case are also trying to block this report. They filed a motion last night asking the district judge in Florida to block Smith. They cited that judge's previous ruling that Smith's appointment was unconstitutional. The special counsel is required to provide a report to Attorney General Merrick Garland, and he can choose to make it public. But Mr. Trump's lawyer sent Garland a letter asking him not to. The defense team calls Smith an out-of-control private citizen unconstitutionally posing as a prosecutor. The Justice Department did not respond to a request for comment. This unfolded hours after lawmakers gathered here at the Capitol to certify President-elect Trump's latest election victory. As president of the Senate, Vice President Kamala Harris oversaw the certification of her own defeat.
Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 300.
Okay, I'm going to share that with you in a moment. So that is the breaking news. We knew it would come to this. We knew that one of the primary reasons, besides vengeance and ego, that Donald Trump was running for re-election was to try to stop these criminal prosecutions against him. We also know, as I've made clear here in my multiple columns in the Washington Monthly, that it is, for the most part, Merrick Garland's fault, plus additionally the U.S. Supreme Court for slowing this process down. However, Merrick Garland should have gotten on it at the very moment that he became Attorney General in March, and he should not have dropped the blueprint for prosecution for obstruction that appeared in the Mueller report to begin with. But he should have appointed a special counsel immediately. The idea that Merrick Garland could not see what the rest of us could see, which was Donald Trump was obviously going to be a candidate again. The fact that he waited around 18 months until Donald Trump formally declared his candidacy, or rather, at the same time, he decided that it was worthwhile to investigate Joe Biden for accidentally bringing home some documents just to make it fair. It was at that point that he established special counsels both to cover the Donald Trump investigations and the Joe Biden ones. Again, if this had been 18 months earlier, we would not be in this situation. Donald Trump would have been already tried, I believe, in DC for the insurrection. And the Florida situation is more complicated because we know something about that Eileen Cannon wrongfully dismissed the case saying that Jack Smith was improperly appointed as special counsel. Now, we know that's not true, but that is kind of not entirely beside the point. So let me just repeat, because there's extra stuff on this. Breaking news is that Donald Trump is on the near eve. We have very little time before his before his inauguration. He is trying to stop Jack Smith before he becomes president from releasing this report to the public, right? Donald Trump is not president yet. When he is sworn in, he will have the power, we know this, to get his attorney general to stop this report from coming out. We have a small window of time. Today is January 7th. That will be January 20th. I think you can do the math to see that we are inside of 2 weeks to get this out. Now, it's fucked up that it hasn't come out yet. But the reason why this is coming up now, you might ask, is I think, based on my reading, the reason why Donald Trump has seen a copy of this report, or at least a final draft of the report on the insurrection and the document case, the 2 federal felony cases against Donald Trump, is because, remember, there are other defendants in Florida, including his valet, Walt Nauta, right? So there are 2 other defendants, and I believe they were continued to be tried. So maybe, I don't know what's going on, but I believe, based on what I've read, that they have copies of that report and probably shared it with Donald Trump. Now, upon seeing the report, his lawyers are jumping in, threatening Merrick Garland, saying, don't let this report out, and also going to Eileen Cannon. Now, this is why this part is weird. Of course, they're going to go to Merrick Garland because he's a pushover. And I hope Merrick Garland accidentally presses send. Or, my dream would be, have you ever gotten those like entire corporation or entire university reply all emails? That actually happened the other day at NYU. Most places have fixed this, so you can't do this. But apparently, this is not a detour. This is right on the money, guys. Apparently, there was a student the other day, like last week, who emailed their professor asking about a grade change or something, and somehow sent it to the entire university. Maybe they had an old email address. We don't know. But when it went to the entire university, to like 3,000 professors, and I think, full-time, part-time, I don't even know if it went to the administration too, this email goes out. And everyone started to reply to the reply all, like, take me off this list, which this went to everybody else. And it got really funny. This is actually really funny, where this one professor, who is my hero now, in the reply all, put a picture of his dog named Onions and said, this is Onions. And anyway, it was a very funny moment. I don't teach at NYU, but I saw this on Blue Sky. Okay, the bottom line is, my fucking dream is that someone in Jack Smith's office or Merrick Garland's office sends the whole damn thing to the entire government by accident, and maybe it goes out to the world in a reply all festival, because that would be accidental, right? That wouldn't be intentional. I just hope someone messes that up, and I hope someone's listening to me. Anyway, we are now waiting for this report. Now, the dumb thing, of course, they're appealing to Merrick Garland, but let me add this. By appealing, I mean writing a letter. Okay, here's what's crazy. Reaching out to Eileen Cannon right now. Eileen Cannon dismissed the case. Of course, Jack Smith appealed her dismissal. Even though he's announced that he's dropping the case, there is a live appeal in Florida to a federal appeals court. That is where the document case lies right now. She has no jurisdiction. I don't think Aileen, I'm sorry, I keep calling her Eileen. I don't think Aileen Cannon can have it both ways. Anyway, this is happening right now. And I have promised you that unless I am in class, and even if I am sleeping, I will drop at everything and come on here. I'll do an emergency Gen Taub Live with the document, probably not yet printed. It will just be on my screen and we will walk through it together. Look, I will screen share with you and show you what I do, how I highlight the key things, because we can do a quickie read of it with the intro. We could do it in a quick, 45 minutes, big overview. And then the following morning, we'll do a deeper dive. I am ready to do this. And I hope it happens this week because I am extremely frustrated. Okay, that was our breaking news. But our lead story of the day, my friends, is this. Yesterday, a federal judge in Manhattan slammed Rudy Giuliani again with contempt of court. And you can see by my photo, we have, and this is an excerpt here from the New York Times, I'll read it to you. Judge Louis J. Lyman of the U.S. District Court in Manhattan has yet to detail what specific sanctions Mr. Giuliani faces, but being held in contempt could possibly hinder the former mayor's attempts to, listen to it, hang on to his Palm Beach condo, which has a value of $3.5 million. And I think you can see over there in the corner, I have a lovely photo of Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, mother and daughter, who were defamed by Giuliani. And if you saw Shay Moss's testimony, the physical and mental toll it has taken on her, they have been afraid for their lives. These were the election workers out of Georgia who Rudy Giuliani accused of passing drugs, of interfering in the 2020 election, of all kinds of terrible lies. And he continues to defame them. There are two cases. I'm talking about the one in New York. This is the case where this is a $148 million defamation judgment against Rudy Giuliani. I can call him that, Rudy Giuliani. And, I love it that it's Ruby versus Rudy. Anyway, Rudy and Shay have won this defamation case. And Giuliani has been required to hand over assets. And I believe he's handed over many things, like the keys to his New York apartment, or rather the title to it. And he's been dragging his feet. And there was a hearing a few weeks ago. And there was his lawyers, I shouldn't say a hearing, the judge said you need to show cause why you're not in contempt for actually stepping it up in handing over more assets. And Giuliani's lawyers wrote the most crappy brief in this case. It was circular. It didn't make a lot of sense. And he was claiming that somehow, because these women had not submitted to the court a sworn statement saying that they had been appointed or they were qualified to take his stuff, even though this judge knew that's why he was dragging his feet. Well, the judge held Giuliani in contempt. And of course, as I mentioned, this puts in jeopardy his being able to hold on to his condo in Florida. And you might wonder, what in the world does the condo in Florida have to do with any of this? And so let me explain this contempt ruling, because this relates to, I think I just mentioned, and these things are kind of breaking apart here. One, he already lost the defamation case, but two, there's separate issues around forfeiting your assets to pay up the judgment, right? Those are two different things. You could lose a court case, but that doesn't mean the sheriff comes by and takes your stuff automatically, right? You could pay up in some other way. What if you lost a breach of contract case and you only owed $300? It's not like the sheriff can come to your house and start hauling away, the china you got for your wedding, if you did such a thing, or your television set, right? These are separate processes, even if there is a forfeiture order inside of a case. So let me share with you what is going on with Rudy, because I love to see Rudy suffer after all the lies he's perpetrated, after he tried to after he got involved in Ukraine in ways that could have killed a U.S. ambassador. He is an awful person, and he deserves all the scrutiny and negative things that are happening in his life. So let me share this with you. This is from NPR. And in this instance, I am not, I'm not going to play anything for you, but I just want to show you what is going on here with Rudy. Okay, so last night we found out that Rudy was held in contempt of court, right? There he is looking aggrieved. And he was found in contempt of court Monday for failing to properly respond to requests for information as he began to turn over his assets in that $148 million defamation case that these two Georgia election workers, who have names, NPR, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, won. And again, this is Judge Louis Lyman. Giuliani testified for a second day at a contempt hearing that was called after the lawyers for Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman said that Giuliani, the former New York mayor, had failed to comply with their request for evidence. Why do they need evidence, guys? Because they need to know more information about his assets. Now, Lyman said that Giuliani, and I'm quoting, willfully violated a clear and unambiguous order of this court when he, quote, blew past, end quote, a December 20th deadline to turn over evidence that would help the judge decide at the upcoming trial this January whether he can keep his Palm Beach condominium. Now, let me explain why this is in play, right? His Palm Beach condominium, the fancy, lovely place, worth $3.5 million. The judge believes it's his vacation home. So if it's his vacation home, he has to give it over to help satisfy this $148 million judgment. But Giuliani is claiming that it is his primary residence. Okay? Now, what was the evidence Giuliani didn't hand over? He failed to provide to Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman the names of his doctors, a complete list of all of his doctors. And the reason why that is relevant is because if you're claiming a place as your primary residence, one piece of evidence toward that is your doctors are there. Now, Giuliani claims that Palm Beach, Florida became his residence, that $3.5 million condo, on January 1st of last year. They don't believe him. Now, Lyman, the judge, also, told Giuliani he was not permitted to try to use emails or text messages to prove that this was his primary home. The judge also said that all that Giuliani was provided was cherry-picked documents, no phone records, and no text related to his homestead. And therefore, he didn't want him to be able to introduce cherry-picked evidence. He said he would withhold judgment on other sanctions. Now, so let me just be clear. Giuliani had testified on Friday for 3 hours in the courtroom. And on Monday, Giuliani was there on Friday the 3rd in person. Yesterday, on the 6th, the judge allowed Giuliani to testify remotely from his Palm Beach condo. Okay. So, Giuliani, of course, is terribly upset about this. But what I feel about it is you can't just ignore the law. There are a lot of people who have responded when I posted the thumbnail for this on Blue Sky saying, oh, don't pretend like the rule of law still applies in America. Well, guess what it does? Just because Giuliani is in close proximity to Donald Trump doesn't mean this civil contempt judgment goes away. First of all, even though it's federal, it is a civil case. A president cannot pardon someone, remove a civil judgment. If Donald Trump actually wanted to help Rudy Giuliani, he could give him $100 million if he wanted to, but he doesn't. Donald Trump gets people to remain loyal to him by dangling the prospect that he will help them. This is one of the chief tools of a manipulator. And so, Rudy, I am so sorry. But one last thing before we leave Rudy Giuliani is this. This is possibly one of my favorite courtroom sketches. I'm not sure if you've seen it. There it is. This is Rudy Giuliani zooming in from home, supposedly, from his Palm Beach condo. And this is, I just want to blow this up a little more. This is Giuliani. And it looks like he's like dangling some kind of pocket watch, trying to like hypnotize the judge. I didn't come up with that idea. I saw someone retweet Parker Malloy's picture, but Parker Malloy said, new objectively bonkers Rudy Giuliani courtroom sketch just dropped. Yes, that is objectively bonkers. So there you have it. We will keep our eye on what happens with Giuliani. I believe that actual court trial on determining factually whether the Palm Beach condo is his home or a vacation home happens, I think next week. That's a date I remember. I remember it was like the 13th or the 15th. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Now, got a couple more things before we get to both person of the day and today I learned, and of course, Crazy Town. Guys, you know the Dixie Chicks, now they're called the Chicks. They have that great song called Not Ready to Make Nice. And it's in response to how they got canceled at one point when they were critical, I believe it was of the second Bush administration and the Iraq War. It was something political, and people said to them, shut up and sing. Like, don't use your platform for anything other than entertaining us, little girls. And they say this about men too, right? But I'm just referring to them. Well, I am not ready to make nice. As you can see right here by the images right here on the wall behind me, resist and reject. I am pumped to stand up for our democracy and the people that Donald Trump will be harming. Now, remember, this is very different than helping his agenda. This is about standing up and fighting back, not normalizing, not trying to get along. And so I want to share with you something that I find incredibly frustrating. And you heard me talk about this previously with Amy Klobuchar with her little yuck yuck fest and practically hugging and smiling and making goo-goo eyes at Ted Cruz. We shouldn't be doing that. So let me share this with you. This is something from, hold on, this is, I want to add that to the stage. Okay, this is from today, from Larry Tribe, a quote tweeting, this is on Blue Sky Social, my friend Jen Rubin, who is a columnist at the Washington Post. So let's read. Jen Rubin said, if Democrats wanted to wage an unabashed defense of the rule of law, hold Republicans' feet to the fire, lead aggressive confirmation hearings on absurd executive branch nominees, etc., then White House, meaning Sheldon Whitehouse, not Durbin, Dick Durbin, should have been put in the ranking Democrats chair. Okay? Now, Larry Tribe, professor emeritus of law at Harvard, someone I adore. He was my constitutional law professor. I only have good things to say about Larry. He's wonderful and generous with his ideas and his time. So Larry said, Jen Rubin is right. As she quotes me as saying, it's now up to Senator Durbin to disprove those of us who think he's a decent guy, but just isn't up to the job of defending democracy and the rule of law from the MAGA wrecking ball. Hell yes, Larry. That is the spirit I want to see. Okay, now, earlier in the show, when I was sharing with you that piece of breaking news that I showed you about Donald Trump and his lawyers trying to prevent Jack Smith and Merrick Garland from giving the public the full report on the federal felony cases that he has been charged with, that he will drop, or maybe even pardon himself. I mean, obviously, when he becomes president. Okay, we want to see that report and we want to see it now. So in that clip, you saw a little bit about what happened yesterday on January 6th, which is, of course, not just the anniversary of the attack on the Capitol, but January 6th is the date every 4 years where the vice president presides over this joint session of Congress where the electoral vote is counted. And I have to say, it's hard to watch this. It's hard to watch Vice President Harris, who lost the election, preside over this. It's something Al Gore had to do, even though the Supreme Court handed George W. Bush the election, right? He had to do that in 2001, and she had to do that yesterday. And it's bittersweet for me because I'm glad that there wasn't by Kamala Harris supporters in a violent attack on the Capitol. However, I'm glad that we have had a peaceful transfer of power in accordance with our Constitution. But I'm sad that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment wasn't self-effectuating and that Congress had to articulate either in a statute or some other way what it meant. So therefore, Donald Trump's insurrection didn't disqualify him. So I'm sad about that. But let me play for you because I'm going to show you what it means to be a patriot. And this is the right thing. And I just want to be clear, what Kamala Harris did and the Democrats did yesterday was the right thing. This is the way to handle this. This is what the majority wanted. That's what democracy is. But now that that has happened, we are citizens and we elected the Democrats we elected in the Congress to fight back. Okay, I'm going to share this with you because I think it's important, even if it's painful. Here we go.
The vote for the President of the United States as delivered to the President of the Senate is as follows. The whole number of the electors appointed to vote for President of the United States is 538. Within that whole number, the majority is 270. The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
Okay. I mean, if that doesn't gut you, I don't know what will. But again, that is the right move. And now we fight on. Now, I want to tell you about today I learned. Yesterday, Joe Biden signed into law a very important piece of legislation that will protect teachers and firefighters and other government workers, will protect their Social Security. And today I learned, because I hadn't really focused on the fact, even though there was a period of time that I worked, there's a period of time now when I'm working at a public university. So I should look into this as well. Holy shit. I worked briefly at UMass Amherst. Wasn't so brief. I think it was 10 years. And when you're part of a public university, I think, and I don't know if I have this entirely right, but you're contributing. I had a choice. My understanding, let's just start simple. When you work for the federal government, for example, and when you're a teacher in certain places, in lieu of Social Security for that time period, you're going to be paid out of the idea is your pension plan or your 403B, which is like a 401k, that's going to be a substitute. Well, the thing is, that seems fine because for those years, okay. However, what I found out yesterday, and that lots of people knew, is that if the amount of time you worked as a public servant is beyond a certain amount, then you forfeit all of your Social Security. I didn't know that till yesterday. And so Biden fixed this. So I'm not an expert on the details. I'm giving you the very general landscape. What I don't know is who is getting screwed over by this before entirely, like who falls into that category. He will explain this for you. What I didn't know either was how much time you would have to work before it would flip over and you forfeited it all. So this is a restoration of people's Social Security. Let's play this right now.
Social Security Fairness Act. When I'm about to sign, when I'm signing today, when I came to office, I promised I'd always protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Never thought anybody'd have to make that promise to protect it, but we had to make that promise. We still do. I said repeatedly that if anyone tried to cut these programs, I'd stop them. And that's the promise we've kept. Even in the face of proposals to cut and weaken these programs that millions of Americans count on, I know there's a lot more work to do, by the way, to improve and expand benefits, including those who most are in need, to protect Social Security for long term, and finally asking the wealthiest Americans to begin to pay their fair share so it's able to be maintained, and so much more. Folks, we could not have done this alone. To the people in this room and the people around the country who did the work, who kept the faith, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so that was a really nice public gesture. Let's dig a little bit into the weeds for this. And for that, I am referring to NPR. Love my NPR. Okay, so let's share that screen so you can also see this. Okay, so here we have it. I'll blow it up. We've got this. Millions of public workers are set to get higher Social Security benefits. Here's why. Okay, let me just read this. So this happened yesterday. A new bill signed into law by President Biden will increase Social Security payments for nearly 3 million current and former public employees. The law, named the Social Security Fairness Act, repeals a pair of provisions that had limited benefits for recipients with other pensions. Okay, so it didn't wipe out all the Social Security payments overall, but it wiped out a chunk of them. So this means workers who previously received reduced payments, including those who served as teachers, firefighters, and police officers, among other public sector occupations, will soon receive benefits in the full amount. In all, the changes are estimated to affect roughly 2.8 million beneficiaries. And this is, what Biden also said, people who've worked hard all their life to earn an honest living should be able to retire with economic security and dignity. This is repealing. If you can believe it, they actually had the guts to call this a windfall elimination provision. Holy shit. They called it windfall elimination provision, as if teachers and firefighters were somehow getting a windfall by getting their Social Security. Okay, so the windfall provision had trimmed benefits for public employees who received pensions not covered by Social Security payroll taxes, and they called this double dipping. However, unions that represented public service workers, I'm a member of a union here at my law school, say that in reality, these provisions unfairly penalize them. Okay, so this is great. I apologize for suggesting it all gets wiped out. But for a lot of teachers, if you've worked a really long time, or firefighters, this would mean you wouldn't get your Social Security payments. Again, I don't know the full details of this. I know the gloss on this. I know that I happen to be affected by this, but I was so glad to learn about this. I will read more about it. I suggest that you do as well. I'm not a public pension benefits expert, but I know that when you talk about Joe Biden fixing something that would affect close to 3 million of us, former and current public employees, I am thrilled. And again, of course, I'll learn more. And when I do, I will update you on that. Now, before we get to Crazy Town, I want to share with you my person of the day. And my person of the day is someone personal to me. My person of the day is my dear life partner and spouse. And here he is, Michael. Michael, his last name is Kutch. It rhymes with much. This is us at one of my favorite places on the planet. It's just down the street, walking distance from Detroit, where I am right now living. And which is, let me add a footnote. I am now living in my very own apartment like a grown-up in downtown Detroit. Michael is still back in Massachusetts with our youngest child, who's yet to go off to college. So I kind of do this, come home occasionally, and we connect by phone a lot. Okay, so this is Michael and I together over the summer at one of my favorite places on earth, which is the Detroit Institute of Arts. And this is in a place called Rivera Court, which is, you stand in the center and you're surrounded by the arts. I think it's called the Arts and Industry, or the Industry. I'll tell you the name of it. It's my favorite place on earth, but I'm not remembering the name. It's the Detroit Industry Murals at the Detroit Institute of Arts that Diego Rivera, painted. It's right there. These murals are frescoes, essentially painted right there on the walls. And it is one of the most amazing places that I have ever been. And there's more, though. Michael is not just my partner. I don't want to define him by the relationship he has with me. Michael is my favorite artist. He's incredibly talented. I don't want to boast about the both the museums and the rare book libraries that collect his work, but I do want to point out to you that over my shoulder here, this Resist and Reject, these images were things that, these are woodcuts that he made 8 years ago when Donald Trump was first elected. And since people have asked me what they are, I do want to share this screen with you to show you where this comes from, so you can sort of see the full thing. Now, this is, let me just blow this up. Sorry, Michael, I didn't warn him that I was doing this. Oh, well, maybe he's watching. So this is Michael's website. It's michaelkutch.com. He's probably upset because it's not fully updated. This was a show he had called Angels and Emblemata that was in Boston. But what I want to share with you is, this is the Rise Up, Resist, Reject Citizens Manual that initially, it was in response to the 2016 presidential election. And you can sort of see how gorgeous these are. Size-wise, they're about yay big. This is the first one, Rise Up. This was, here's Resist. And then there's Reject. And what you are looking at here, even though I am downtown, my screensaver, my green screen here behind me, is a shot from my older brother, Adam, someone else I adore, who lives uptown from me. He has all three, the Citizen Manual, on his wall. He is one of, anyway, he loves Michael's work, as do I. So I just want to share that with you as my person of the day. Hey, Mikey. Okay, so now it is time for Crazy Town. Let's do it, guys. Okay, Crazy Town relates to the mainstream press, the corporate media, starting to justify the expectation, or the result of the expectation, that Donald Trump is going to pardon all, if not most, of the people who were convicted for participating in the violent insurrection, the attack on the Capitol 4 years ago. And we expect Donald Trump to do that. I talked about why that's not about the past, that's about the future, sending a signal that do whatever for me, and I will wipe the slate clean before I leave office. I think that is what the message is that he is sending. Now, what I'm sharing with you is this crazy interview that Margaret Brennan had on Sunday on, I believe it's Face the Nation, with Nancy Pelosi, where the host here is suggesting that it's perfectly fine to pardon these people, even though they were violent, because, they're kind of white collar folks. Okay, this is what we are up against. Let me play that for you.
But some of the 1,600 defendants here were really only charged with trespassing. And when you look at the profiles, University of Chicago did a study. Half of those who broke into the Capitol were white-collar workers. They were small business owners.
Fuck you. Excuse me. I just have to cut this off. White-collar workers. Do you know my entire focus and field is white-collar crime? And she is falling into the very trap that people did before 1939 when Edwin Sutherland coined the term white-collar criminal to describe people who had high social status and respectability in their community, who engage in criminal activity largely in the course of their business. But still, she is basically saying people of a high social status shouldn't be in prison. She's saying the quiet part out loud. Allow me to continue.
Didn't necessarily have a criminal record. When you look at that profile, you said intention. It was the intention itself you think that needs to be considered, more so than the crime, you know, that it.
Let me stop here. Get a fucking lawyer, Brennan. A criminal conviction is based on a mental state, which is the intent, combined with the action. Again, she is suggesting that a crime committed by a mob, an individual people, because of their high social status and because the harm wasn't, for some of them, completed in terms of violence, that they should get relieved. Does that mean someone who is a wealthy person who attempts to have their spouse murdered, that they shouldn't ever be charged? These are the idiotic arguments someone is actually making on television, and I'm disgusted. I will not cut this off. I will continue with this crazy business now.
Pass the crime itself of trespassing in a different light for you.
Well, the president said he would go on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
So I assume that some of those people may not have engaged in the violent activities that some of the others did.
Okay, that is fine, Nancy. I wish there had been more of a legalistic response, but that is what she had to say. But it is disgusting that that is a line of argument. And we're going to hear this more and more when he pardons people. And I think we need to think about how classist and racist what is going on when people say what she said out loud. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. I will see you bright and early tomorrow, Wednesday. What will it be? January 9th, 2025. Thanks for joining me. Bye.